Attention Tribe! Ready to take charge of your future in the trucking industry? Join us for CMC Live at the Mid-America Trucking Show, March 26th and 27th in Louisville, Kentucky. Led by Kevin Rutherford, CMC Live delivers actionable insights and real-world solutions From cutting-edge strategies to hands-on advice, this is the event that puts you in the driver's seat of success.
Don't miss this life-changing experience. Don't miss this life-changing experience.
Be unstoppable.
CMC Live.
March 26th and 27th at the Mid-America Trucking Show in Louisville, Kentucky. Register now at truckingshow.com. Register now at truckingshow.com.
Your taxes, your truck, and your road to success in the trucking industry. This is Trucking Business and Beyond, the show that puts the money where it belongs, back in your pocket.
Good morning, you beautiful bunch of fuckers, and Happy New Year again. January 3rd, we've had such a great start to the year, at least here we have. I've got a lot of stuff going on. We just wrapped up a podcast, David Owen and I from NASTIC, and we decided to just keep the conversation going. So David's here with me. Joel is here, so I'm going to bring everybody in so we can start talking over each other. And I'm not sure if we're getting Henry yet or not. I haven't seen. David, Joel, good morning,
Henry's
guys.
on vacation.
Oh, what do you mean vacation?
Yeah, I know. That's what I said. What the heck?
I tried to take a vacation. David and I were just talking about this. I tried to take a vacation last week, but people kept calling me.
Yeah, it didn't work, did it?
I know, it didn't work at all.
I know the feeling.
Hey, I'm not sure if you two have met yet.
We talked briefly on the show at one point.
Yes.
How you doing, Dave?
I'm good, Joel. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I forgot we had a show today, and I was on the phone with Dwayne down at Volvo, and we were geeking out on some numbers that I'll probably blow Kevin's head apart with here in a little bit, but it'll be fun.
But you could have brought him on with us too.
It sounds like you prepped just as much as Kevin and I did before we did our show.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're kind of winging it here today, which is what we do on Fridays all the time. We always have fun with it. So
that's the best shows anyway.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Just kind of wing it, and there you go.
Yeah. And I really have to wing it because I had a ton of notes, but I left it in the other room. So.
Well, good, because I've got a ton of numbers sitting here in front of me that I'm gonna throw these at you, because this just completely cuts against everything we've learned. And we've kind of proven this out mathematically, and it's going to add a whole nother level of complexity to when you try to explain how to spec trucks.
What you're telling me is you're going to make my job harder.
Get your duct tape out and start wrapping around your head right now. So,
am I going to get paid anymore?
You're going to need a lot of it.
My job's getting harder. Am I going to get paid anymore?
Yeah, me too. I need a raise.
So
when you're operating at the end of the month on what's left over and you're negative, you didn't get paid.
That's tough, right?
Yeah.
Well, see, that's what we're trying to avoid here, and we're trying to come through with some specs on trucks that help to drive down maintenance cost, improve efficiency, and try to avoid that negative bottom line.
That's right. So that's a great segue to what David and I were just talking about on his podcast, and we just seamlessly moved right over here to ours, because the world's getting more complicated, trucking's getting more complicated, and we just have to deal with it. And I think the real solution to all of these things is education. There's a lot to learn. We need to learn the right stuff. We need to be willing, which we've done many times here on the show, to say, look, it's not that we were just completely wrong, but we're learning more stuff. So some of the things we used to tell you still applies, but not all the time. It might apply to certain trucks or certain situations. There's a lot of new things coming out that we're working hard to understand. And as we understand it, we'll pass it along to you and help you understand it. And that's really the core of what we do here at Let's Truck. I mean, it's education. And David and I were talking about the CMC coming up at Louisville this year. It'll be our second year as an official part of the Mid-America Truck Show. I'm excited about that. I'm really excited because NASTC is now our partner in the program. So that's going to help take us to the next level. And Joel, I've mentioned to you a couple times, I want you to be a part of this.
Well, let me stop you midstream here because this will throw something else into there. So after going through all these numbers that we went through, which we'll talk about later, Dwayne said the exact same thing that you did. He goes, education is going to be the key to get people to understand this. I said, Dwayne, why don't you bring your butt on down to Mid-America and we'll do a 2-hour breakout section on. And he said, I'll do it.
Fantastic.
So I got to figure out a way that we can get him in there, and me and him want to do. This is going to take 2 or 3 hours to cover. I mean, it is not going to be an easy thing to do, but I think it brings so much value. So that it's something that really needs to be done.
It absolutely does. Think about this. Think about, we have the live session there for a day and a half, and you and I can talk about some scheduling and how much time I can squeeze in. Then the CMC program goes on for the rest of the year. And we have total control over our time then. I do a 2-hour webinar every other week, and we have videos so we can show graphs. It's just really like being in person. It's a Zoom conference. We can show all the data, and we could spread it out over maybe a couple sessions if it helps to understand it better instead of trying to cram in too much at once. That's the beauty of the program now. We have a lot of flexibility because we have all year, and it's my show. Nobody says we have to stop at 2 hours. You know, if we're at the 2-hour mark and we're in the middle of a good conversation, we've got questions, we just keep going.
Right. Yeah, definitely something Dwayne is interested in.
Excellent.
This is something I've worked on my whole life, and I've kind of pushed back against, what has always been thrown out there. There for a while, I was a direct drive guy for the longest time. And then when I started playing with overdrives, I noticed every single time my fuel efficiency was better. And you'd hear from your typical engineer, no, that's it. But we know now why. And we can demonstrate this mathematically, exactly what's going on. And I think it's important for people to understand and know what's going on and understand the advantages of this very aggressively downsped powertrains with overdrive. I think Henry's seeing a lot of the same stuff in his Freightliner when he made the switch from direct drive to overdrive. And I've got some initial numbers that we can run through that I think really, and these are just very basic, and I'm rounding these numbers. They're not out to 6 decimal points like Dwayne likes to do, but it really demonstrates the concept and what we're talking about. And then also, you know that I'm a big fan of kinetic energy, and trying to explain that to people is very difficult. And I think we've come up with a way that is kind of mind blowing. Also, I never thought about it this way, and me and Dwayne got geeking out about some things, and we thought about, okay, how do we, when we backfeed the transmission during eco roll, what's the input or the main shaft speed when we're in neutral? This goes to rear axle ratio, spinning the drive shaft, spinning the main shaft, why we're supposedly I mean, there's a lot of drag, we're spinning a lot of oil there. So there's another level of things to think about in terms of kinetic energy and how that impacts fuel efficiency and roll windows and aerodynamics. So it's out there on the edge, but it's all very demonstratable through mathematics. So I think some interesting stuff.
So education is the key to this, but we have to educate properly. And what I've found is we need to do it in small chunks, and we need a lot of repetition. So why don't we do this?
For sure.
Why wait till April I'm already doing a CMC, and again, it's my program. I can control the content. Why don't you and I and Dwayne get together and start doing something on the CMC now? We kind of ease people into this.
All right, I will talk to Dwayne, see what the schedule looks like.
Yeah, so it's
I can throw some initial concepts and ideas out there, and then if Dwayne's open and has some time where he can do that, yeah, I'm definitely all for that.
Yeah, well, it's every other week, Thursday at noon Pacific. So that's the schedule. So we can kind of ease into it and then get some repetition. And you and I over the last 2 years, I've pushed back on you on a lot of stuff. I'm like, what are you talking about? Because you and I were in lockstep for years.
We butt heads on a lot of things, but we're both open-minded about it. Just I'm never going to call you crazy. I might not agree with something, and I may want you to really explain it to me in detail. But I'm not ever just going to write it off. And Dwayne is very much the same way. Where a lot of engineers, especially when a truck driver's talking to them, they're going to write you off in about 15 seconds if you don't agree with them. And I mean, in a lot of cases, they're so busy with all the other things they have going on, in business, so they just don't have time.
Well, just
Dwayne
so you
makes
know,
the time, which is friggin' awesome.
Just so you know, I have called you crazy.
Oh yeah, no, I've called myself crazy more than once, because some of the stuff I look at, and it's like this overdrive versus direct drive thing. I knew that it cut completely against what everybody says, and I was thinking to myself, I must be crazy, but it kept coming back time and time and time again, and we kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and finally I think we've got this figured out.
And David, just to kind of catch up to speed on here, what we're dealing with, and I deal with it a lot on the show. We are still, it's a very small group, because I'm associated with Pittsburgh Power specifically. They still deal with a lot of people that are running mechanical engines. So we're talking stuff from the 80s. I mean, the Detroits were all electronic by the late 80s. The rest of the engines caught up by the mid 90s, and we've been electronic ever since. We've got this small group that still runs mechanical engines, and we have to explain certain things. They're different to drive, they're different to work on, all the fuel mileage stuff is different. Then we get into the early electronics, late 80s to early 2000s, so electronic but no emissions, and we have to explain things a certain way for those engines. Then we get into the early emissions in early to mid 2000s, and we have to explain things about those engines in a different way. And it changes a lot of concepts. Things we absolutely said were true on this engine is no longer true on the next generation of engines. And then we move into the true modern diesels, where we have solved the emissions problems. And just trying to convince people of that. You and I were just talking about this. We were talking about the fact that you can roll these trucks into the shop and let them idle and nobody even notices. And before, you used to race the truck in and turn the key off before you stopped rolling, so you didn't smoke everybody out. And
exactly.
So the first thing we have to do is convince people these aren't a problem anymore. They were for about a decade. They're not. These engines are mechanical marvels now.
I hope you've noticed that I'm doing a pretty darn good job of keeping my mouth shut.
That's a rarity too.
And, you talked about the value of education. I'm a good listener, and I'm going to continue to listen. When I get an engineer talking to a geek, I'm going to listen. The one thing about an engineer, though, if you send him to the grocery store, he could tell you how to take an engine apart, put it back together, why it runs, why it does this and that. You send him to the grocery store to get a loaf of bread, he comes back with a box of chocolate chip cookies. Now,
this is very true, and I think this is one of the great aspects of my working relationship with Dwayne is that, look, I'm a driver. I've been doing this 37 years. I've logged around 5 million miles. I've been on the road a lot. I understand the trucker mindset, the trucker mentality. I'm out there. I'm still out there every day. I'm doing it. So I'm going to bring you back the loaf of bread. I can help Dwayne understand what's happening in the real world. The last engineer that I worked with, I had a very similar relationship. We had a good working relationship. And he said, you're my race car driver. I'm the race engineer. I can't do my job without your feedback. Yeah. He was very clear about that. He said, the best engineer in the world is worthless without correct feedback. And he said, that's why you're so important to me. And I've been doing this for a lot of years, and I've picked up on what do the engineers need? What do they need to understand? How do I put it in terms that they understand, kind of cross that bridge from trucker lingo to engineer lingo and backfeed it to them. And so we've been able to make a lot of advancements in concepts for powertrains in regards to downspeeding, just because we have this working relationship that jives so well. And some of the stuff is pretty revolutionary. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but it really does cut across or against most of the things that we've learned over the last 45 years or so. And we're showing the results. Last year, Purple Haze 1 averaged 10.78 miles a gallon running regular van freight.
Did you hear that number, David?
Let me ask an elementary question.
Sure.
Just for my own edification, and I'll let you two guys batter it about. The new catalytic converters that we have on trucks today, my understanding is that they run the dirty oil right back through the engine. And that indicates how little I know about anything that has to do with a diesel engine. But the understanding is that it runs it back through and cleans it again. How many challenges did that create on getting fuel mileage and oil change intervals and that sort of thing?
Joel, let me answer the easy stuff. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, let me do the easy stuff. So to clarify a couple things, we really don't run catalytic converters. There was one engine that did a little bit for a while. Now we've got what we call the downstream emissions. So we've got DEF, diesel exhaust fluid, that does some of the cleaning. And then we have the DPF, the diesel particulate filter, which does more cleaning. But what you're referring to on the engine itself, we have EGR, which doesn't have anything to do with oil or recleaning anything. We take the exhaust gas, so EGR, exhaust gas recovery, recirculation.
Yeah.
We take the exhaust gases and we bring them back into the combustion process, primarily to cool down the combustion, right, Joel?
Yes, you're correct. It helps to control NOx. And a point I'm going to make, and I know a lot of people are going to lose their mind here, we're actually finding out that this can be beneficial.
I've heard
for
that
years
before.
and years.
Yeah.
That was just the scourge of, from hell. It was EGR. Oh, you're running soot back to the engine. Today, we don't run near the amount of EGR that we used to. The first generation engines, it was problematic because we were trying to control all of the NOx through EGR, and NOx is created as combustion temperatures go up. Higher combustion temperatures result in better efficiency, but higher levels of NOx, which is a gas. So what they done was they would take maybe in the beginning, we'll just say 30% of the exhaust would get recirculated back into the engine because there's no oxygen in there, and that would cool the combustion event, and that would lower NOx levels. So we had less NOx gas coming out of the engine, which is a greenhouse gas that EPA wants us to limit. The early engines, that really took a penalty on fuel economy because we were circulating so much EGR back through, and it was some extra soot because we didn't have the advanced combustion strategies that we have today. So jump forward in time to today's engines, and I'm going to use Volvo as an example because I'm a Volvo guy. So we have We went from a 6-wave piston to a 7-wave piston. We've got these little waves on the top of the piston that directs the combustion back in on top of itself. We added an extra hole in the injector to match the number of waves. Our injection pressure is higher. Our compression ratio is higher. We can do multiple injection events per stroke, so make sure we're cleaning everything. And today we use maybe 5 or 6% EGR recirculated back into the engine to slightly cool the combustion event. And then we control the NOx gas with diesel exhaust fluid controls NOx gas, and the DPF catches the soot downstream. So we're reintroducing very, very little soot because combustion is much cleaner to begin with. And being able to accurately control the temperature of the combustion events increases the life of the cylinder head, the valves, the crown area of the piston. Things last much longer. Today, when people delete engines and they block off that evil EGR, one of the first things that happens, you drop valves or the valves sink into the head. Yeah, I mean, you just run into all kinds of problems because you cannot accurately control the combustion temperature. And that's extremely important on today's engines, being able to control that combustion temperature. So in the very beginning, EGR was kind of an evil thing. It took its toll on fuel efficiency. It took its toll on engine durability because we did have some soot loading problems. We learned really fast that how you geared the truck, and if you could lower the piston speed, it could help maintain combustion temperatures and lower soot production. That's kind of how I got on the kick of aggressively downspeeding trucks. Was very early on. I was just looking for a solution. How do I control this soot? And it does work. There's no doubt about it. Gearing on a truck today is probably one of the most important things you can do to keep the fuel efficiency high and reduce downtime. When we take traditional gearing that we used back in the 80s and 90s and we apply them to new trucks, it's trouble. We have very high piston speed. The engines aren't operating under load. We're cooling off the combustion process too cool. That creates a lot of soot, and it's just trouble. So you'll see almost every manufacturer today has introduced aggressively downsped powertrains to one degree or another, and it really does help drive down maintenance costs and improve fuel efficiency.
So a couple things here. One, I got to correct myself. You would think I would know my own schedule, but my listeners have to remind me. CMC is Tuesday. Coaching calls are Thursday. So it's every other Tuesday for the CMC. Another one, David, to kind of help you with it. Well, David, does listening to Joel talk about this engine and fuel mileage stuff just kind of remind you of talking to Bobby Harder about technology?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm a good test for software development. I'm no tech, but he did a good job, I think, of explaining where they've come. I got in on the early end of it, and he was right. The fact that when we first started having to do this, we got all kinds of complaints about how much damage it did to the engine and all the different moving parts, and what a pain in the butt it was. But I'm glad to know that the industry, the engineers involved, have made it better and turned the negative into a positive. That's good news for everybody.
Dave, here's an analogy that'll help you with this. And before we go too much further, when you hear the term down speeding, we're not talking about the road speed. We're just talking about the engine speed itself. We're running these engines much, much slower, and then we need different gearing to keep that slow engine moving the vehicle at a higher road speed. So we're not talking about going slow. We're just talking about running the engine slower. But here's an analogy that'll help you with this. Remember the awful cars in the 70s when they first started the emissions on the cars? Everything about those cars were just awful. And then in the 80s, they started to get a little better towards the end of the 80s. You look at today, I'm not even sure why any of my vehicles have a hood latch. I don't open the hood on a vehicle anymore. I mean, these things, they're just amazing. They just run and run and run, and you don't do anything to them. As a kid growing up, I was working on my car or my neighbor's cars constantly, and the trucks are getting the same way. We don't replace alternators like we used to, and starters like we used to, and U-joints like we used to. We could go on and on and on. The stuff we replaced over and over and over when you owned a vehicle for a while. You just don't do that. They are so much better now. And we need to convince the people that the engines have caught up. These engines are incredibly sophisticated now. And I'm excited to know that I'm ignorant about some of this stuff again. And I need to learn some more things, but I'm excited because I know if I learn more things, we can improve more things.
One thing that you taught me about what you were just talking about happens to be the use of when we started talking about oil analysis and increased oil change intervals. You pointed out to me that you noticed the new engines that were designed by computers that were so much tighter that you weren't losing oil.
Not at all.
And that's what kind of sent you into the oil analysis game in extended intervals. And I thought that was interesting that the tooling allowed an engine to be so much tighter that you didn't lose oil. So then, with introducing the synthetic oils into the diesel engine, you can do an oil analysis and my Lord, change your oil change interval from 30,000 miles to 130,000 miles. And now you're doing oil analysis that costs $25, $30, as opposed to an oil change every 3 months that costs you $500 or $600.
Here's why oil analysis has become more important than ever. I actually started doing oil analysis on my own trucks in '95. I've been doing this a long time. I can't count how many oil samples I've looked at and analyzed on the air, but now it is more critical than ever. Here's why. When I started in the industry, we changed oil at 10,000 miles. Then we went to 15, and a lot of people got stuck on 15 and haven't changed that. They're still doing it today at 15,000 miles. And it's so expensive to do now. But when you start extending drains out, before, if you had a problem in the engine, it might not matter because you were changing the oil so often, it was never going to cause a problem. Now, when we're extending these oil drains way out, if we have fuel contamination for some reason, we could wipe out an engine. If we have coolant intrusion, we could wipe out an engine. If we start getting dirt in because we have a breach in the intake somewhere, we could wipe out an engine. So you absolutely have to do oil analysis now. And if you're not, you are risking wiping out what is now a $40,000 engine.
It's kind of like advertising that you can take pain away from arthritis, but yet if you take the pain away, the person may not know they're sick.
Right.
And so be careful what you ask for. Obviously, nobody wants to be in pain, but pain is necessary to know that there's something wrong going on. It sounds like to me that's a fairly decent analogy with your engine.
It is. Yeah.
One of the things to also keep in mind here, Kevin, and I know you're famous for this. You've talked about when you look at oil samples, you just wish they would throw the whole additive count away. That's on the package. I think that's going to change in the near future.
I've been noticing
as
that
engines become more proprietary and vertically integrated with the powertrain. I think engines are going to have their own unique bearing materials and unique materials inside the engine that are going to react differently with additive packages. And, today we can still I could take a 1540 conventional oil and dump it in my truck. It's going to run. It's not going to be ideal for fuel efficiency, but it's going to run. It's not really going to hurt much. I could run a 530 full synthetic and, it's going to run. It's going to do its job. I foresee the day where, a Volvo engine is going to require a Volvo specific oil with a very specific additive pack to work correctly with the emission system and with the materials the engine is built with. And when you stray from that, that it could be problematic in the future.
We're
not
what you're
quite
telling
there
me, Joel?
yet. We're getting closer every day, though.
You know what you're telling me? You're telling me my job's getting harder again, and I'm not getting paid anymore.
What he's telling me is that the Freightliner may have problems with antitrust like Microsoft. you gotta have a certain type of additive for the engine to run even after you buy it, which could be problematic legally.
Yeah,
well, I don't think it'll be you have to buy Freightliner branded oil or anything. I'm sure that all of the additive manufacturers and the base oil manufacturers, they'll have alternative brands to buy, but they will become more and more specific to particular brands. And Volvo's already kind of there. With their VDS 5 spec, they are recommending in their newest engines that you run a full synthetic 5W30 with that VDS 5 spec if you want to get optimal oil drain intervals and optimal fuel mileage. Now, they'll allow you to go back to a VDS 4.5 spec, but your fuel mileage is going to drop a couple percent, and that 530 flows very well in the cold versus a conventional or even a full synthetic 530 4.5. And so, where occurs at startup, right? And so the faster that engine flows through the oil flows through the tighter tolerances, the better off it's going to be. So we're getting there.
Well, Cummins is really there. They have the whole program where if you're running a specific oil, they have different programs. So yeah, we're already seeing that.
I know that I've told you this story, Kevin. I'll try to put it on 78 RPMs, but when I worked for ComData, I called on a company up near Indianapolis, and I was visiting Bob Kelso up there at the Titans Colts game about 15 years ago, 10 or 12 years ago now, I guess, when they opened Lucas Oil Field, which is the first $1 billion indoor stadium. And we're sitting there talking, and I said, Bob, about 25, 30 years ago, I called on a little trucking company about 50 miles outside of Indianapolis, and it was called Lucas Trucking, Lucas Transportation. They were running about 35, 40 trucks. I said, are they any kin to these Lucas people, the Lucas Oil? He said, that's them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I talked to the wife when I called on him. She ran the company pretty much. And the husband, Mr. Lucas, came in, and he was in overalls. He had grease up to his elbows. He wouldn't shake hands with me because he didn't want to get oil on my hands. And here, 25 years later, they got multi-million-dollar race cars hanging from the ceiling of $1 billion building with their name on it. And you know how he got that is he developed an oil additive, Joel, that the race car drivers in Indianapolis loved, and it fit their engines and did something for them that no other additive did. And that's what put Lucas Oil on the map.
Our Tuesday show with Pittsburgh Power and Bruce Mallinson's the founder. Bruce is good friends with Forrest Lucas, who started the company.
That was the guy that wouldn't shake hands with me back in the
80s. Interesting. Lucas Oil was founded in 89. I mean, it's a fairly new company when you think about it, how big they are now.
Yeah, that was 87 when I was calling on him. And yeah, they started Lucas Oil the same year I started NASDAQ, 1989.
Yeah, he also started a film production company. What an odd combination, huh?
I don't know, but that's one of the greatest, to my mind, that's one of the greatest business stories I've ever heard.
It is a good one.
It speaks to how you guys that make money out of engines respect a better mousetrap.
Absolutely.
And go with that. And no kidding. I don't know whether Volvo does business with Lucas Oil or anything else, but he probably wouldn't like the idea that you have to use Volvo oil in all your trucks.
Well, he might be the one that formulates that additive package that makes it work really well with each individual engine. And the additive company, this could be a boom for them, because now instead of putting out one oil, they're going to put out 4 or 5 different oils specific to these OEM engines.
Yep, for sure. For sure. And you know what else, when you stop and think about this, as the engine base architecture gets better, the technology that we put into them gets better, combustion gets cleaner, oil drain intervals get longer and longer and longer. The latest generation Volvo, we're out to 90,000 miles without any bypass, without any sampling, without anything. They'll let you go to 90,000 miles. That's going to continue to improve. So they're going to be able to charge more per gallon because the oil lasts longer.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to be probably a good thing for them. They're going to lose some volume, but they're going to be able to charge more per gallon just simply because it lasts so much longer. And it'll still be a great value for the driver, because you have much less downtime, and you're paying a few more bucks per gallon, but you're only doing it once a year or once every year and a half changing oil. Not that big a deal if the oil's twice or even 3 times as much versus doing 15,000 mile oil changes with conventional oil.
I have a good story that kind of ties all this in with engineers and oil and all that. I was asked to give a seminar at a truck show, and it was Overdrive magazine that asked me to do it. And I have tons and tons of material I can pull from, and this one was only an hour. So for me, on an hour, my hardest thing is, what am I going to talk about that I can get across in an hour and actually teach somebody something? And when I was talking about it with Overdrive, and they said, well, since you've got so much material, they said, there's something we'd like that you not talk about. And immediately my antenna goes up. But you're not going to tell me what I can talk about and not talk about. But I said, okay, I'll because I only have an hour and there's so many things. What is it? And they said, well, Shell is the sponsor, and we really don't want you to talk about bypass filtration and oil sampling and extending drains, because they don't get to sell as much oil then. So if you could just stay away from that topic, it'd be all right. And at first I was going to say, not no, but hell no. I'll talk about what I want to talk. And then I thought, you know what? It's no big deal. I got plenty of things. So I didn't talk about it, covered something else. And there was a bunch of executives from Shell standing in the back of the room the whole time. And I get done with my hour presentation. We open it up for questions. The very first question, hey, I heard you talking one time about the fact that you never change oil on your trucks. And I said, well, first off, I didn't say I never change it. I said, but with bypass filtration and oil sampling, we can run oil out much, much farther than we used to. And I gave a couple examples of trucks going, 200,000 miles on the same oil. And I looked at the back of the room, and I could tell these guys were freaking out. And I said, I don't care. They asked a question. I'm going to answer the question. I'm not going to dodge it. I'm not going to give them a short answer. I'm going to give them the same answer I would give any other time. And I did. And I saw them back there, and we finished up about a half hour of questions. And before I could walk off stage, the person I worked with at Overdrive said, hey, do you have some time, because Shell would like to meet with you? And I said, all right, sure, I've got time. So I walk in.
And you should have started out your conversation with the same way we started out this conversation, that knowledge and education and continuing to learn all the time is essential to growth in any industry.
That would have been a good thing. I didn't quite have this sense about me because I was ready for a fight. I'm going to come in with guns blazing. So I walk into the room and they introduce me to everybody. And there was one marketing person and 3 engineers. And I said, oh, good. I'd much rather have that than the other mix. So we sit down.
You already got a majority.
Yeah, we sit down. And the marketing person, of course, kind of running the show. And she says, look, you really can't tell people that. And I said, well, I just did. And she said, no, you shouldn't tell people that. And I said, oh, yes, I should. And she said, I don't think you're understanding me. And I said, no, I understand you very clearly. And I said, let me talk to the engineers for a second. And she was not happy about that. And I looked at the engineers and I said, I'm pretty sure you guys brag that you have the largest database in the world of oil analysis results. And they said, yes, we do. And I said, so if I bring you an oil sample and I don't tell you how many miles are on that oil, can you tell me whether it's still serviceable or whether it will do any damage to the engine or not? And they said, of course we can. And I said, I don't have to tell you how many miles are on it, right? And they said, no, it helps if we know the mileage and then we can pick out more fine detail. But any oil you bring us, we could tell you in minutes whether it's serviceable in the engine or not. I said, perfect, because you heard my answer up there. We would never extend drains without oil analysis. And everybody in the room got quiet. What can they say to that?
Right.
They're the ones that brag that they have this technology to tell you whether your oil will do any damage or not. And my point was, you paid for the oil. You should use it as long as it's still working in your engine. They didn't like the marketing people didn't like that.
I've got a question, Kevin. How soon can we set up making oil analysis available to NASTIC members at half your normal cost, of course, and and turn around the oil analysis for these guys, like next day, twice as fast as you're doing now, of course.
Hey, I have a response to this. David, did you happen to see when Trump had the big press conference not that long ago, and he had the CEO from SoftBank, and he was trying to convince him to invest $100 billion in the United States? Did you see that one?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did. So, and then at the end, he comes up, why don't you make it $2 billion? Yeah. And the guy just nodded.
Yeah. And he did it because of all the pressure. He was right. David does this to me all the time. He gets me on the phone and he throws something out like, well, of course you can give us half price, right?
Well, he read the art of the deal, right?
Yeah, the art of the deal. So
I love being compared to Trump, by the way.
Well, there you go. There you go. So
that's a well, right?
Prices aside, we'll talk about that later. We can,
sure.
I'm sure Lisa could put together an awesome program pretty quickly because that's the kind of stuff she's really good at.
I've really been interested in trying to provide that through an education program like yours to our members. And we've not done a good job. And here again, this is something else I'm excited about our relationship. The missing link, so to speak, in our offering has been Kevin Rutherford in your book of knowledge, but neither Buster or I, either one, have that anywhere close to what you and Joel have, or anybody else that's actually done it, and paid for it, and everything else. So this relationship, which was too long in developing, I think is going to really be advantageous to NASTIC members and to those fuckers out there. I got to be careful how I pronounce that. Those fuckers out there that follow you. I can't wait to be a part of all of that in 2025 and take this relationship as far as we can do it without and making both organizations stronger in the process.
Yeah, that is, I look at one of my favorite business books is the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's almost like a business Bible for me. There's so much good stuff in there. And is it habit 4 or 5? One of those two is it was a buzzword for a long time. You don't hear it much anymore. Synergy. And this is our partnership is the real definition of synergy. And what you get is in a case like this, 1 + 1 = 5. If we do this right, this is a multiplication factor, not just two companies coming together. So I'm really excited about it as well. It does seem like it took us an awful long time, but sometimes business is all about timing.
Absolutely. And what's so interesting to me is basically you getting kicked off Sirius XM radio was the catalyst that brought us together.
David, I told you I'm not off. I'm not off
in
Sirius.
a lot of ways.
They're running my podcast.
I know that. I know that.
Did you?
You're not answering my phone calls though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I won't be dialing their number anymore, and I'm not going to syndicate my podcast. So they'll just have to get a little bit of me through you, okay?
Well, I think you want.
I'll badmouth them every time I want to.
Yeah, well, I do. I think you actually one-upped me. See, I got canceled, but they at least waited until the end of my show. They just hung up on you.
That's exactly right. It was he was like he had his finger on the button the whole time.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Oops. Yeah.
I called him back and said, I hope I didn't get you in trouble, and he claimed that was coming on a hard break, but that wasn't the case.
No.
So I got cut off.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the beauty here. We can say whatever we want. And we do.
Well, absolutely.
So, David, how long do we have you today?
You got me for as long as we feel like it's productive. We can talk about fishing if you want to.
Sometimes we do.
You catching any fish up there on the farm?
Well, I did. We have a creek that runs through the farm about 8 months out of the year. It dries up in the summer, then comes back in the fall, and it's flowing like crazy now. And it's 15 miles away from me. Here it's raining. Out there we got about 2 feet of snow in the last couple of days. But on January 1st, my daughter and I went out and did a cold plunge in the creek.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it was fun. We got it on video too, so it's up on X. Yeah, but I was there in spirit. I didn't see any.
I don't even like cold showers.
Well, I ask about the time because Joel and I have been known to go about 3 hours on this show, and sometimes we go 2 hours without even taking a call.
I understand. Well, you got me for as long as you want me. You just let me know when you want me to hang up. But I'm enjoying listening to y'all. No kidding. I've learned quite a bit just in this 45 minutes we've been on.
Well, Joel, I know you. It sounds like you're kind of bursting at the seams here to get some of this stuff out. But why don't we? I want to hear it. And I'd like to do it on a day where it's not quite so hectic and we don't have so much stuff going on. So you and I talk about that. Let's kind of free form this today and kind of stick to some business stuff. I just looked at my notes and I had something, David, I meant to talk to you about this. And Joel, I don't know if you and I even talked about this. Did you guys see that Cal Freight bankruptcy?
Yeah, I did.
Did you look at the numbers?
I did not.
David, these you're going to get these numbers and boy, if I didn't understand why this happened, I would look at this and say some reporter just got this completely wrong. This happened during COVID, and the company claimed that they went through a very aggressive growth phase when the rates were up. The problem with that is when the rates were up, the equipment prices were darn near double what they should have been. And I was telling people every day on this show, I don't care if you don't have a truck, if you crashed your truck, if it got stolen, do not go buy one. Rent one. These prices are coming back down. And the problem is, once you buy one, you can never undo that mistake. You can't make it up.
So, yeah, and one of the other aspects of this, and David, just so you're aware, my brother has a fleet. He's got about 10 trucks nowadays, 300-400 trailers.
Great company.
When we were going through COVID and rates were at the moon, you remember drivers' wages were the hot topic, and people started paying drivers just crazy money. And he was trying to keep drivers. He's like, what the hell are we going to do? He goes, damn well all this stuff's coming back down.
Right.
And he goes, I can't believe people are doing this.
Because you can't take that back.
He really struggled. Right. That's exactly what he said. He goes, they're paying all this money for equipment. They're paying these drivers almost $1 a mile, a lot of them. And he goes, you can't take any of the shit back. He goes, I don't know how these people are going to make it. And sure enough, we're still seeing the fallout from it. So you're spot on, Kevin. You got that. You nailed that.
So here are
just so y'all know, we got our year-end figures, and I have them here somewhere. We were a positive growth association for 33 years, which means positive growth means you increased your growth in the company, however you measure revenue, members, whatever, and at least by 20%. And we were positive growth every year for 33 years, except for the last 2.
Yeah.
And in 2022, the end of 2022, we had 15,200 members. And here we at the end of 2024, 2 years later, we now have 12,545.
Wow. So
and that's even signing up probably 2,500 members over those 2-year periods. So we added 2,500 members and lost a net of about that many.
So really
about 2,500.
Yeah.
I haven't added this. Actually, almost 3,000. So, but what that is those very companies that it looked so darn easy. We had a high watermark, Kevin. We were having 70, 80, 90 people come through our new entrant survival class every month.
Wow.
And we were adding 250 to 300 new members a month.
Whoa.
I mean, we had a growth spurt that you can't even imagine. And most of these guys were 1, 2, 3 truck companies, just getting started out. Or a guy with 1 truck deciding that it looked so easy and it was going to last forever, he'd add a truck or add 2 trucks or whatever. And this correction has been a correction that the marketplace dictated. I mean, this year the freight availability got so bad this year. I mean, for a full year now, that the largest full truckload carriers in America have gone into the spot market to get freight.
Yeah.
They have actually not relied on their contracts and their relationships with Procter & Gamble or whoever to haul freight. They have gone into the spot market to keep their drivers in their trucks. And when they do that, the amount of available loads for a guy with a handful of trucks goes way, way down. And it's not just freight rates, it's every indicator is that the manufacturing people are making less of everything. They're moving less of everything. And the economy has been, however you want to measure it, has been there's overcapacity to a large degree. And our small guys are the ones that take it on the chin and go out the quickest because they're the most vulnerable. Having said all that, I think it turned a corner sometime around election time, coincidentally. And I think that we're going to slowly work our way back to a more normalized marketplace if, in fact, we have enough wisdom to keep the government out of nationalizing transportation, which is what they're dead set on doing. And if in fact we can keep the government from doing away with the owner-operator model, which they seem dead set on doing.
David, there's a new metric that hadn't been around. FreightWaves kind of came up with this, and it took me a while to even understand this. I kept reading it and go, what are they talking about? And it goes along with what you said about the carriers moving into the spot market. There are a couple reasons that can happen. And FreightWaves came up with this metric, and they call it the tender rejection rate. So you've got a big carrier with contract freight at $2 a mile, whatever it happens to be. The numbers aren't important. And all of a sudden, the spot market starts heating up. Typically, contract rates are better than spot market rates. But
Sure.
the spot market starts heating up, like we went through that phase. And what happens is these carriers just say, no, we're not picking up that contract freight. We're grabbing stuff off the spot market. So they just reject their contract. And they call it the tender rejection rate. And when it starts to climb, it's an indication that the spot market is heating up, and these big contract carriers are just ignoring their contracts and running on the spot market.
I'll tell you another thing that's working here, Kevin, and we've talked about this before. And my brother's fleet's kind of on the small side of a mid-sized carrier, at 100 trucks. They're not huge by any means, but when they're looking at new customers and the way the economy's been, and that customer looks a little iffy, they'll actually work with a broker and let the broker take the risk on it and run the loads to the broker.
Right.
I mean, he's done that multiple times when they thought it just wasn't worth the risk. So I'm sure there's a lot of that going on out in the marketplace too. And I don't know how you would see that in any of the data.
No,
does your brother actually broker freight as well?
He does not broker freight. No.
Okay, I got you.
So let's go back to these numbers. David, imagine a fleet with 580 trucks, and they have $325 million in debt.
Oh, Jesus.
I looked at that and I thought, somebody reported that wrong. That can't be right. But it is.
So this is Cal Freight?
Yeah, Cal Freight. $325 million in debt. They're trying to reorganize. I can't see how you can possibly save that company.
So they were a company in California?
I don't know where Cal
They
Freight.
they had locations all over the country, and I know they've got Daimler wrapped up in this, and Daimler's making some concessions to keep things. I don't recall all the details, but it is a mess. It is just a complete mess.
Are they full truckload entirely, or are they LTL, or what?
I think a little of both.
Little of both.
That's the problem.
They're actually
based. That's a major problem.
Yeah, they're actually based in Arlington, Texas. They do run a lot of California, but they're based in Arlington. They've got terminals not really all over, but they've got Atlanta, Fontana, Hampton, Indianapolis, and Phoenix. But I looked at those numbers and I thought, why would their creditors even agree to work with them? Talk about risk.
Yeah, didn't it? They had trailers that they had leased, and then they had sold the trailers or released them or some damn thing without the original people knowing what was going on. I mean, they had all kinds of shady stuff going on. It was crazy.
Yeah, they were calling them ghost trailers. They didn't even exist.
They shipped them up to Canada, and they were putting them into Canadian.
Yeah, it was.
There was all kinds of stuff that you're thinking, okay.
My first.
When did this company form? Do you know when they started?
I don't. Let me see if I can find that here. 2014. They've never even been through a downturn.
Wow.
And it shows.
that tells you about all you need to know, right?
Yeah, exactly. But what I didn't
I
understand
wonder,
is why are
are
these?
they a publicly traded company, or are they privately held?
Um,
And did the founders of the company just have a lot of money and think it would be cool to be in the trucking business?
that doesn't happen, does it? I don't think they're publicly traded. I didn't see anything about stock prices in here, and I'm just shocked that these financial companies were willing to even work with them because I don't see a way out of this, really.
Well, a lot of times they kind of get sucked into it. You know, a company becomes too far in debt to fail, so to speak. And then that's the worst time the government needs to get in. What happened with roadway yellow is criminal.
Oh yeah,
There's no way that the government should have put in $500 or $600 million to bail them out when they were a company that was trying to go broke for 20 years.
Yeah. Here's
that is true.
Here's what Calfreight.
Actually, two companies that were trying to go broke for 20 years, and they joined ranks.
Here's what they claim they do: full truckload, dry van, dedicated loads, expedited teams, trailer interchange, and logistics. So they don't list LTL at all. I thought they did some, but
Is money laundering on that list? Or?
It should be.
Oh, me.
Crazy.
I know all I need to know about them. They started in 2014. I was just wondering where the founders came, what their background was.
Right.
They probably came from big trucking somewhere, you would think, or maybe not. Did they run owner operators or company trucks? Do you know?
I don't think they had any owner operators. Maybe they did, but I'm pretty sure they were mostly company trucks. I mean, every time I've seen their truck, they're all logoed up and it looks like company equipment. David, speaking of what was their background and why did they just think it was fun to get into trucking? I had somebody reach out to me on social media, and he wants to do a phone call, and he wanted to know if I do one-on-one consulting. And I just don't. I don't have the time. I don't really want to invest that much time in any one project. I said I have this group coaching thing that I can do, and he said, "Well, I think I'm going to need more direct time." And I said, if it's a project I'm interested in, I do it. I said, but it's $500 an hour, and my time's going to be limited on how often I could work on it. I said, what's the project? Because I usually don't need that much time. And he said, I've got a 35 truck fleet that I'm looking at buying. And I said, oh, no, that's going to require quite a bit of time. I said, so what specifically do you need me to help you with? And he said, well, I don't know anything about trucking. And I said,
Save your money.
I said, I can save you so much money and I'm not going to charge you a penny. I said, just don't do it. Just
don't do it.
Don't do it. I said, or I'll give you another option. I could, if I wanted to, retire in a little bit. I said, but you could hire me to buy this and run it for you for a year or two, and you could pay me $1 million a year and we'll call it even. But otherwise, you should probably run the other way.
I had a guy one time that was very successful guy. He's probably worth several millions of dollars, and he'd run like 2 or 3 car dealerships very successfully, and he had a lot of money. And I don't know what he was thinking about, but I guess he admired the car haulers that were moving his cars in and out of his lots or something. But he decided that he retired, sold his dealerships, but decided to get into trucking, and he joined NASTC and called me and he said, and introduced himself as a nice guy, smart guy. He had an accounting background, reminded me a little bit of you, but he'd been successful selling cars and not trucking. And he said basically the same thing, that he didn't know much about trucking, but And I said, well, what kind of trucking are you going to do? He said, I'm not so sure, but I want to start out with 10 or 12 trucks. And I said, well, how many trailers are you going to buy? Oh, I don't know.
Of course he does.
What kind of trailers are you going to? Well, I don't know. He was, he joined NASTIC, and I helped him all he could. He lost, if he started out with 10 or 12 trucks, it probably took him about a year and a half to lose $1 million a truck.
I have a feeling I know why and how this happened, because this was a pattern for a while. I would hear from accountants who would call me and want to buy trucks. And I finally realized that I would ask them and they wouldn't really give me the right answer. I knew they weren't giving me the right answer. And then it dawned on me what was happening.
They had a group of doctors that thought it'd be great to invest in trucking. And what was the other thing that the doctors got into and lost their shirt? Shopping centers.
Oh boy.
In trucks and shopping centers.
Here's why the accountants got confused. They were doing tax returns for single truck owner operators, and they were looking at profit margins of like 40%, which isn't even that exciting, really, for a single truck guy. We think their margin should be closer to 50%. And in their head, they're going, 40% margins? If I get 10 of these things on the road, I could retire. Look at all the money I'm going to make. What they didn't take into account was that driver was driving 140,000 miles a year. That was his pay. That wasn't the profit margin. The profit margin was more like 8%, and the rest was going to pay the driver.
Exactly.
So that's why
exactly.
I think
it's kind of like when, and I don't want to call any names, but a very large REIT bought one of the major truck stop chains, and a REIT is a real estate investment group.
Yeah.
And when they bought this truck stop chain of almost 300 stops, they looked at the property value on the interstate of all these big lots, and boy, they were salivating.
Yeah,
they're going to steal this chain of truck stops, which they did, and took them a few years to figure out that they weren't buying property that was unencumbered.
Right.
That they wouldn't be able to put a hospital on one of these properties, or an apartment complex, or a Shoney's, or anything else. They had to continue to be a truck stop because the ground was not fit to put anything else on without spending $50 million to reconstruct the ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what happens when you have people that are in the real estate business getting into the truck stop business.
Well, David, I have a hobby sometimes when I'm bored. I scroll social media looking for truck drivers complaining about paid parking and how much everything costs in the truck stop convenience store. And then I just blast them with reality. There's a reason. And I'll tell them, look, if you think that is such a high margin business, go open a truck stop. And then I tell them, if you want good parking and better options, be willing to pay for it. Oh, I'm not paying for it. I buy fuel there, and I have to pay $8 for a Snickers bar in their store. No, you don't. You can buy a Snickers bar anywhere. You don't have to buy it from their convenience store. You choose to because it's convenient, and you have to pay for that.
Oh man, I'll tell you one thing. If you want something that looks real easy, guess what? You stop and think about a truck stop. They're open 24/7, 365 days, and in leap year, 366 days. They never close. They have to run 3 shifts of everybody. TA Petro, who is our largest partner in our fuel program, has 3,000, Joel, 3,000 techs.
Wow.
Wow.
3,000 techs that are constantly getting re-educated and getting trained on everything we've talking about as far as taking care of engines and keeping trucks running.
Hey, David,
Can you imagine?
let's throw in something about those techs or all of their employees, but specifically the techs, it's even worse. Something people don't think about. I run my business out of a very, very small town, and it would be almost impossible for me to grow here. I have no place to pull people from for employees. They would have to drive too far to get here. Think about how many truck stops are nowhere near any kind of population center that you can pull these people from.
Right.
And they're not building any more of them.
Right.
You know, we're growing the industry and need more parking. Parking's the second most important problem we've got to solve, but they're not building any more of them. The EPA won't let them build any more of them. We're not building any more refineries. All these people that think that the magic bullets don't happen when we open up the Keystone Pipeline need to get in grips with the real world, because we cannot put any more fuel in the ground than we can refine. And we haven't had a refinery built in the nation in 50, 60 years because the EPA has made it so difficult to do. I heard that we were building a new one last year, and I don't know when it's going to be completed. But refinery capacity, you can only put so many barrels of oil, refine it, and get it into the ground in the country every day. And until we build more refineries and build more truck stops and add more parking, we're going to have all kinds of problems. And paid parking is almost a necessity.
It is.
Because during COVID, particularly when the smaller truck stops really couldn't accommodate anybody, the larger truck stops were overrun, and people would buy fuel from Pilot and go over and park at TA.
You know, David, on that topic, I love business innovation and people that take risks. And you have a partner company that was at your event recently, and I've met the CEO, and I really like him. He's a sharp guy. Truck Parking Club, to me, is just an outstanding company, and I love what they're doing.
I think it's a great idea. We've been talking to them for a couple of years. I'm pulling for them. I don't know, and I think they're doing well. They've added, I don't know, tens of thousands of spots. The thing that makes so much sense to me, if we could get somebody in the government or at the state level to do a beta test, the thing that I think makes so much sense, and I think that the truck stop community would support this, is to take a stretch of interstate that's got closed rest areas on both sides of the interstate, that the state can't afford to mow the grass, and let's take a private company, whoever, somebody with some deep pocket. Let's take that guy that owned all those car dealerships, that's got more money than he knows what to do with, and get him to build 200 parking spots on either side of the road, put in 180 charging stations for electric cars, not have fuel for diesel fuel. Let's leave that to the truck stops.
Right.
But put in parking and clean bathrooms, fencing, lighting, security, a safe haven for trucks to park and spend the night, a safe haven for somebody to stop and charge up their electric car, and let the state government lease that to this car dealer with $12 million or $50 million to invest, and let him build something that creates revenue in the private sector, and have a gate at one end and a gate at the other, and a trucking company's fuel card opens the gate, and a trucking company's fuel card closes the gate on the other side. And if he spent 8 hours there, he's billed $12 on his fuel card.
Real quick,
it would take very few people, and now you'd have to invest several millions of dollars to build the facilities out. But you know what? The government won't. even talk about that. I've broached that to a couple of jurisdictions. You know what they say? That's a great idea, David, but we're not gonna allow you to pay charge people for it.
I'm not sure if I'm right about this.
Have you lost your mind?
Yeah, I love the idea. And I'm not sure if I'm right about this, and I want to get to a couple calls here because we've had people waiting. I think I read somewhere that there's a federal law that prohibits it.
That could be.
Might very well be. I mean, we can't try. The state government can't keep the damn grass cut. That's why the place is closed.
Yeah.
Okay. You got to generate some revenue from somewhere, and the taxpayers don't want to pay to cut the grass.
Oh hell no.
So let the private sector take a little slack up and make it a business.
I agree wholeheartedly.
It's passive capital. You don't have to spend. You don't have to have 100 people on the lot. You don't have to have maybe 24-hour security. Maybe somebody to cut the grass. But if you pave it all, you don't even have to cut the grass.
When I brought this up several times, and I think I've done it on the air, I've done it in, when I'm talking with other people in the industry, I've gotten two answers as to why it doesn't happen. One was there was a federal law, and I never just verified that. The other one, they claimed that NATSO, the Truck Stop Association, fights it every time it comes up.
Well, that's true, but every time it's come up, the way they present it is to compete with the truck stops on the fuel island.
Right.
And I'm not suggesting that at all.
No, you
Matter of fact, the only fuel that would be available at that hypothetical truck parking place would be hybrid for autos.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. I agree.
And they get to pay. They get to pay for their parking spot too.
That's right. Hey, what do you say we take some calls?
Absolutely.
Let's see what the people want to say. We're going to go to Minnesota. Brett, welcome.
Morning, everybody.
Morning, Brett.
Discussion. Morning. It's been a good discussion so far. The phrase "a fool and his money are soon departed" fits it very well.
Yeah,
that's true.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't you know trucking is so profitable? 40% margins. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
I wonder how many companies that think they're running 40% profit have a column in their accounting Kevin of replacement cost.
Oh, that's another big one. You're right.
They know how to depreciate the truck, but are they setting aside a replacement cost on every load they haul?
Nope, they're not. They don't even think about it.
No, they're not.
Yeah, don't even think about it. Joel, I'm sure your brother does.
They do very well. I'm not going to get too deep in the numbers. They do all right for themselves.
That's good. But that's the point, though. There's a reason they do well. It's not luck.
Yeah, he's been an efficiency guy from day one, and like I said, as they've grown, they've had to kind of transition into that economy of scale model. As they get bigger. But he was brought up efficiency, and everything they do is extremely efficient internally. Operationally, they run very lean in the office, and it's not your typical trucking operation for sure. Jerry's been a hands-on guy for a long time, and he'll still get in the truck and go out and run loads if needed. And so he is very, very connected to the day-to-day operations still.
If I get back to Ohio, because my whole family's there, I'd like to run out there and see the place and meet him.
Sure. Yeah, we could definitely set that up.
Yeah. So, Brett, what's on your mind?
Mm-hmm. Well, one more thing I was going to throw out too, about efficiency, downspeeding, and my other favorite topic, delete. I ended up changing jobs again. I went back into a downsped Volvo from a what do we call it? An upsped Peterbilt, and my God, the drivability of these things are like, it's night and day. It's like going from a horse and buggy to a space shuttle.
That's a good analogy. I agree.
Well,
It's a whole new world,
Kevin. I mean, I'll give you the specs of the truck I just got out of. 2013 Peterbilt 388 ISX. 18-speed manual and 410 rear end.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, please tell me you were hauling construction equipment locally.
No, we were hauling injection molds locally, actually. Same weights, but they took the limiter off of them. He bought those trucks used. They were originally spec'd for a company up in Quebec who ran them at 55 miles an hour all the time on off-road environments.
Right.
We put them on the highway.
Yeah, that's a disaster.
Yeah, going down the highway at 1650 RPM at 65 miles an hour. What fun.
You might as well give your drivers a bundle of $20 bills every day and let them throw them out the window while they're driving.
Well, we got paid hourly, so we practically did in a way.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Now it's a 2012. Now I got a 25 Volvo with 264 rear ends and a 12-speed overdrive I shifted. My God, this truck is so damn quiet. I can't get over it.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like it's like driving a nice luxury car these days. The Volvo, and Volvo's always been the leader in that. Always. That was. The biggest challenge for me was when I could no longer get a Detroit engine in a Volvo truck, and I had to switch to Freightliner. Sorry, Freightliner, but it was a downgrade on everything in the truck.
Yeah, because if I remember correctly, Kevin, you were doing that around about the same time they had the Century Columbia truck, not particularly well known for its high build quality on the interior department.
I made the mistake one time of taking. I had a Columbia, which was the less popular of the two. Most of the fleets had the Century. The Columbia allowed you to customize it a little more of an owner-operator friendly when you ordered it. But the dash was virtually identical. And at like 700,000 miles, the dash was destroyed and everything rattled. And I took on the project of replacing the whole thing. Never again. I was so deep into that dash, I never thought I was going to get the truck put back together.
Yeah, for a fun game, Kevin, sometimes go look at the used truck ads. Try and find a Columbia or a Century from that era whose dashboard is intact.
Yeah.
You're not.
No, they were awful. Yeah. If I had to go back and buy one, it would be an FLD because they actually stayed together really nicely.
Yeah, I think when they brought out that lineup, they changed suppliers for their interiors and
something happened.
I don't know who it was, but they need to look harder.
We can either blame it on the engineers or the accountants.
There you go.
50-50 split.
Could be.
And my final thing of the day, because I'm just now learning about this, David, what was it that got you kicked off of the Sirius platform? Because I just heard about this today.
Well, I think I told Kevin, I don't know what, it may be in our earlier conversation. I called into the, I had a radio show for almost as long as I sponsored a radio. I paid for time, an hour a week for about 14 years on, it's called Safety, Compliance, and Common Sense on the Dave Nemo Show, Monday, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock every morning, every Monday. And I didn't get kicked off of that. I just decided that I was going to quit doing that, and I started a podcast. But I've had a good relationship with Sirius XM as far as I know. I did notice that there were times when I thought I was getting edited when I crossed the line. And I understand they gotta be nice to the people that pay the bills. unfortunately, those same people are usually very large trucking companies, and that's not my favorite. That's the enemies as far as small trucking is concerned, in a lot of respects.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so I called in, and we're talking about on the Casey Phillips was talking about on his segment on. I listened to it on the radio, and he was talking about the decreased number of fatalities in that just came out in 2023. The number of I think it's 23 numbers. That the fatalities had gone down 1%, and he was celebrating, and rightfully so. And he was having a, he was congratulating the industry and all that stuff. And I called in and just to remind him that that's the way the government moves the statistics around a lot, because that 1% decrease was following a year where we had record number of fatalities. 5,700 real fatalities in big truck car accidents in 2023. 5,700 deaths, the largest number in history, recent history, since 1975, which was even before deregulation. And I reminded on the air KC that when CSA came out, which I've referred to as an abortion, which it is, it's been changed about 1,000 times. They've renamed it, and they keep trying to make it work, and it never has worked. It's put more small trucking companies out of business for no good reason than anything I think of. So I badmouthed the CSA. I thought it was ironic. I said that the number when CSA came out in 2010 was 3,400 deaths, as opposed to 5,700 deaths, and the per 100 million mile death ratio in 2010, when CSA ironically came out, was 1.3 deaths per 100 million miles, and the current rate in 2023 was 1.9 per 100 million miles driven, which is a 30% increase in deaths. And I also reminded him that for the first time in the history of keeping track of fatalities, we lost over 1,000 truck drivers in truck car accidents. Mm-hmm. So that was a new record-setting deal. And as he was kind to me, and I went on a little bit of a rant, which I'm prone to do. And then I said, to me, none of the things that the FMCSA has come up with, mandated ELDs, mandated this horrible idea of mandated electronic braking systems when they're not ready for prime time, and mandated speed limiters, all the things that have come out of big trucking, which really seem to me to be almost aimed at putting small carriers and owner-operators out of business. And they totally ignore what I think is the biggest safety issue, and that's excessive driver turnover rates that all the big companies enjoy. And all of a sudden, the phone went dead.
Imagine that. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Well, you learned something new every day, I guess, too.
I didn't get the phone call like Kevin did. I didn't get officially kicked off. I was just a caller calling in like you.
Hey,
I was speaking to dead air immediately when I brought that up.
Hey, David, early on when I first started doing this, I would get this a lot. Once in a while, somebody would actually call me back, or they would send me a message, and they would be irate. They would be like, "You hung up on me." My answer was, I hang up on everybody. I can't wait for everybody to do all the niceties, like have a great day and, we'll see you next. No, when I'm done with hearing what you need to say, I hang up on you. That's how talk shows work. You just got to keep things moving, but that's not what happened to you.
Well, just be just be advised, if I am talking to dead air here at any time during this conversation, it'll be our last conversation. Unless you call me back and say that it was a technical problem.
Well, I can't blame it on your cell phone. You don't have one.
That's right.
Yeah. So Brett, Justin, now, you know what? I don't do it nearly as often now that we have our own show because I have as much time as I want. We don't go to commercials, so I don't have to worry about breaks. If I want to go long, I can go long. If I want to quit short. So I don't do it as often anymore. I usually let people say goodbye now.
Yeah, I will say, Kevin, that's one of the reasons I love this program so much. As long as you want to talk, it's as long as you want to talk. No hard breaks, no commercials.
Yeah.
No sponsors.
Yep. No. Even when I had sponsors, I would say whatever I wanted to say, but that got me in trouble too. So.
Yeah, and also because it's free, I've gotten one or two people to listen as well too, without having to pay Sirius's absorbent prices.
But what do you mean it's free? We're not charging people for this?
Is that what I was paying for?
That would be a good time to tell everybody to go to our store and support us. How's that for a commercial?
That's a good way to do it.
There you go. I'll even tell them where it is. Let's truck.com.
Or they could consider joining NASTIC. That's a way to support us.
There you go. That's right.
If you're gonna be turn this into a commercial.
Sure.
By the way, I'll take this opportunity in front of all you fuckers to thank you again, Kevin, for all the business you sent us over the years.
That's right. Yeah, that was David. That's one of my favorite phone calls of all time. But right after you,
I bet.
Yeah, right after you got.
I called you.
I
called you and said, "It's time we talked. I owe you some money."
That's right. I'd love phone calls like that.
Because you sent us literally hundreds, if not thousands, of prospects, people you've referred us to, and I'm very appreciative of it. I'm really excited about completing the circle, so to speak, because your offering and my offering are in line totally with helping small trucking companies and owner operators squeeze a little bit more money to put on their bottom line, and that's really the end of it.
Which is exactly why I sent all those people. It was the right thing to do. This show is about helping those guys succeed, and they need you to succeed. Really, that was the whole point of it all.
Well, I think you know this, and I'm sure most of your listeners have heard this. We had shook hands one time about 15 years ago at the Mid America Truck Show. I think was the extent of our knowledge, and we talked one other time about possibly participating in your boot camp or whatever you want to call that thing.
Right. That was it.
And
yeah.
And that was it. And I never asked you to refer anybody to me. And I'll tell you one thing. I got a really good feeling. This is a guy whose nickname is No Tech. But I had somebody go on. What is that thing you go on? James, help me. That you go on a website and you put in code words, and they put in the words small trucking company discount fuel.
So you're talking about like a Google search.
Well, it wasn't a Google search.
No.
It had a name, something link.
LinkedIn?
I don't know. But anyhow, he Googled that, and guess what popped up?
My name.
A full page of NASTIC's discount program.
There you
Didn't
go.
even mention anybody else.
There you go.
And I've never paid a nickel for that advertising.
Yep.
That's just, we've earned that advertising by doing what we say we're going to do, and that's helping small companies put money on their bottom line.
There you go. We love that.
Well, maybe it was a Google search.
Okay.
But it had a name.
All right.
Other than Google search.
Hey, Brett, do you want to say goodbye?
Yeah, have at her. Talk to you all later and keep up the good work.
All right.
Thanks for calling, Bert. Good to see you.
Thanks for the call. Let's hey, David. We've got a friend of yours on the line. Mark. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, y'all.
So
good morning, Mark.
Remind David of who your mutual friend is, and you two just met at the NASTIC event here not long ago.
The Bill Freilich insurance guys.
Oh yeah, Mark. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm just sitting here trying to get going in the new year. Kind of slow, but I needed some time off, so I haven't worked since a week ago from Monday. So just trying to rest up. Got some maintenance done on the truck, and about to purchase some patches for the decking on the car hauling trailer and on the head rack that actually I'm going to get David Counts a fleet air filter to do, which maybe you should get. Okay, here's a good segue here. I was visiting with David recently, and I told him, I said, yeah, I saw Kevin up in Nashville. What was he doing there? And I told him about NASTIC. I said, yeah, Bruce and them were there, Pittsburgh Power. He goes, how was it? And I said, you should go. He goes, I think I want to go to there next year. I said, everybody has to pay to go, so it kind of eliminates, the people that, don't pay to come to an event. And so he would be a good person to get to come to your next event next fall. So he's developed this air filter that most everybody that is involved with Kevin's program uses, that helps save fuel, eliminates. It's a permanent air filter that uses oil technology and increases the flow to the engine. They can all explain better than I can. I use the technology. I've become friends with the owner, because he's going to actually do some aluminum work on my car hauler. So,
David, this is one of those great business stories. So David Counts, just one of the most talented people I've ever known. He does so many things. He's got a large RV body shop, kind of RV repair, right off of I-10, just outside of Mobile. He also has a towing contract down there for that stretch of the interstate and the little town that he's in. And he builds crazy high-end muscle cars. Like, I had no idea what that market had turned into. He'll take any of the old muscle cars, a Camaro, a Mustang, whatever somebody wants, and he will paint it. He will make custom interiors. He will build the engine I've seen him build 1,800 horsepower engines. Where he does all the welding on stainless steel and builds his own stainless steel headers and exhaust systems, and he does all the work. He doesn't anymore. He's got some partners, but he still does the paint work. He does the sewing on the interior and the upholstery. He does the engine work. But some of these cars are selling for $300,000 to $400,000.
He better be careful. The EPA find out about how much that's screwing up the environment. They'll always do the same thing to him they did to Fitzgerald and up in Cookville.
Yeah.
And shut them down.
Yeah. So David was also a big dirt track racer, and he developed a better air filter technology that allowed that's a dirty environment. It captures more dirt because it's oiled foam instead of paper. But even though it captures more dirt, it also allows more airflow, which is really important to the efficiency and the power. So it's just paper air filters have been around for about 100 years, I think, and they haven't really changed. And that's what we run in these trucks. And they're expensive.
Well, that sounds like a no-brainer for us to partner, have a partnership with that vendor, and one of the areas that we're going to really concentrate on over 2025 and forward is utilizing your expertise in the maintenance area and do a better job of helping our guys in the maintenance part. One of the problems we have there is the maintenance guy is not always the guy we send the newsletter to. The maintenance guy is not always the guy we talk to on the phone.
Right.
And one of the things that, and you know, I feel very uncomfortable calling the maintenance guy that's handling 20, 30 trucks and telling him what I think about maintenance, because I don't have any credibility in that area.
Well,
but that's the kind of product that we could get behind with, you know, and work and do a mutual thing with. That's the kind of product that fits right in with that oil analysis and extended oil intervals. Those are the kinds of things I'm excited about, because when it comes right down to it, the end game of doing a better job with preventive maintenance, the end game with using better products that solve these kinds of problems in the truck, is lack of downtime and lack of wait time, and the truck being not running paid miles and the driver not getting paid miles. And if we can attack that collectively by offering better ideas about how to fix that, my whole deal is, Kevin, if I can reduce somebody's downtime by 100 hours a year per truck, think what that puts on his bottom line in small trucking.
Here's why I'm so happy that this kind of happened by accident today. We kind of threw our morning call this morning together at the last minute. I think it was scheduled last night sometime, wasn't it? I mean, that was a last minute thing.
Hey, it's the holidays, okay?
That's right. But then we got talking, and I said, hey, you know, I'm going to have to go, and because I got to get my show going. And then we thought, well, we'll just continue the conversation. I've been wanting to get you and Joel together for a long time, and I knew the conversation was going to go like this. All three of us understand that growth model, that you can do certain things with one truck that you can't do with 10 trucks, and other things can't do. All three of us really understand that. I've had these conversations with you and Joel. We talk about it all the time on the show. These kind of products, these are not fleet products. At some point, and it's pretty quickly, you can't do this stuff. It's not practical. This air filter, this is a lifetime air filter. You're not going to buy an air filter again. Once you buy this one, you wash it. The foam is washable. So you pull the foam wraps off this filter, you wash them, and the best idea is to buy an extra set of wraps, and you pull them off, wash them, throw your new wraps on, and deal with the dirty ones when you've got time. So it saves
How in the world did he get that by the big companies that manufacture the paper filters?
Yeah,
I'm surprised that he didn't get outlawed.
Yeah, it improves engine performance and fuel economy, because we're flowing more air, and diesel engines love lots of air, and it's a lifetime filter.
But it lacks inbred. It doesn't go away.
Right.
It's like
It's not a consumable.
Selling a golf glove. You're selling a golf glove that doesn't wear out in the palm. You tell them that you need this calfskin golf club that you could give so much better feel. But guess what? You're gonna have to buy a new golf glove every third round.
Yeah.
You don't have built-in obsolescence with that thing.
No,
that
you don't.
Can't work.
Well,
you can't have that.
Now, here's why it doesn't work for a fleet. Because the fleet truck's going to pull into Flying J or some service center, and the tech will throw the filter away, not knowing that it's a lifetime filter. Go ahead, Joel.
Kevin, had this happen at my brother's, when I was still there and doing the R&D and stuff, we had 5 cleanable air filters installed in trucks. Within a year, 4 of them got thrown away. You know what I mean? And you can't do it in a fleet. And this is the advantage of being an owner operator. Here it is. It's efficiency. We talk about this all the time. Don't follow the big fleet model. You're not gonna ever win that economy of scale battle with a fleet. You're just not.
Right.
This is all about efficiency, and the fleet will never win the efficiency battle with an educated, skilled owner operator. Never happen.
Joel,
never happen, and that's your advantage.
help me with some numbers here for David. So David, this stuff sounds, so we talk about oil analysis and extending drains. Now we're talking about this lifetime oil filter that improves your fuel economy. I think you made a statement, well, that's just a no-brainer. But Joel, what would you estimate if we look at let's just stick with one truck, one driver, because this works for them every single time. What percentage of the people do you think even know that this stuff exists?
It's still about 0.5%.
David, can you believe that? Think about the potential.
It's very low.
No, I believe that.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
and the thing of it is, when individual owner operators do see this stuff, then they go right to like a dealership shop tech and ask them about it. Well, of course, what are they going to tell them? Oh, that's just junk. You don't need to do that shit.
I have a great story about
the kind of stuff that happens. Sure.
Or better yet, you'll lose your warranty value.
Yeah,
you can't do that.
We could talk about that. That's another issue people don't understand. But I have a story about this. When I first discovered bypass filtration and oil analysis, it was 1995. And I also talk about building good relationships with a local shop and make them your go-to resource. Take them all the work you can. And I went to my shop that I had built a relationship with, knew the owner, we were friends. And I showed up one day with a bypass oil filter. And I said, hey, I want you guys to install this. And he said, what does it do? And I said, well, once you put this on and this air filter, and I put this other fuel filter on, I said, I really don't need to service my truck anymore. And he said, why the hell would I want to put that on? And I said, well, I'll tell you, you can either put it on and keep getting all the rest of my work, or I'll go find somebody else to build a relationship with. And he said, oh, yeah, that makes sense. But he didn't, he wasn't wild about it. And he said, are you going to tell other people about this? And I said, I tell everybody about everything. So, yeah, I will. But we're still good friends.
I'm telling everybody.
Yeah, that's right. We're still good friends because about 1% of the truck that came into his shop had that stuff, even though I talked about it forever. But that's the advantage. David, that's the education
why not
part.
To do that type of stuff and why not to become educated. It takes too long to really understand how this works. So I'm just not going to do it. And, I do the same thing with the fuel mileage stuff, Kevin. I throw every single bit of data out there. 90% of the people just want to laugh at you and make fun of you. Very, very few people take the time to understand it. And, I'm basically stamping their ticket. You want a 10-mile-a-gallon truck? Here's how you do it.
Here's how you do it.
Giving them every single thing they need to know. And very, very few people will do it.
Yeah.
One of the stories that I tell is, and I'll bore you with one of David Owen's stories, is about the two campers that are stuck in the woods, and a bear gets in the camp, and he's looking for food, and these guys are hunkered down in the tent, and one of them gets up and starts stretching his hamstrings and gets out his sneakers, and the other guy rolls over in the sleeping bag and says, I don't know what you're doing. You can't outrun that bear. And he said, I don't have to. I've just got to outrun you.
That's right.
and so there's so much in this industry that you can't, Joel, you can't outrun the bear. And you're exactly right. I tell people all the time, I don't want everybody to be a NASTC member. If everybody became a NASTC member and joined our fuel program, I'd lose my fuel program.
That's right.
I wouldn't have one left. So I try to express to small companies and owner operators, they can't outrun the bear. They cannot outrun the litigious society that we're in. They can't outrun all the regulatory onslaught that we're in. They really can't compete in the long term with big trucking organizations. However, they can definitely outrun their peer group.
Yes.
And you don't have to outrun the bear. You just got to outrun your peer group. So what I'm all about is trying to help NASTC members who've identified themselves by joining NASTC that they're serious about making money in the truck. They're serious about competing in the marketplace. They're serious about putting good people behind the wheel of their truck, and they're serious about safety. And those guys stay in business until they decide to get out and park their trucks, not the marketplace.
Absolutely.
So my message is don't try to outrun the bear. And Kevin, you're right. You can tell Joel, you're right. You can tell everybody about how to get 10 miles a gallon out of a truck, and 5 out of 100 or 10 out of 100 will take the time or do the research or to actually implement those things. And you know what? They outrun their peer groups by a long shot. I know you've done the math, Kevin, and what one mile per gallon does over a year with a truck.
And then what you can do if you invest it for retirement and the whole thing. You know, those people you just described, David, the ones that will outrun their peer groups, we have a name for them.
Fuckers.
That's right. That's right. Hey, I had somebody who called me the other day, and he said, I was recommending your show to somebody, and this guy really needed it. He was almost out of business. He didn't understand any of this stuff you talk about, and it was clear that he wasn't going to make it. And he said, I recommended your show. And then I saw him about a week later, and he asked the guy, have you been listening to the show? And he said, not after the first 10 minutes of the first show. He said, I'm not going to listen to anybody who calls everybody that name. And I said, good. We like to keep this an exclusive club.
Can I say something about outrunning the bear?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in my segment of my industry, I tell, okay. So Larry Bird, there's these videos on TikTok of Larry Bird, and he would always tell everybody, this is what I'm going to do before he did it. And he would go do it. And we know the history. I mean, he just told everybody what he's going to do, like called running smack or whatever. I literally tell my competitors what I'm going to do, and I go do it. And I still do it better than they do because I am more efficient with my time. Now, I can't get the fuel mileage that Joel gets, but I make up for it in other ways.
Well, no, Mark, hold on. Let me address that. You get significantly better fuel mileage than your peer group. Joel's not in your peer group.
That's true.
That's right.
You haul cars, and we know what the average. In fact, you do significantly better because it's a percentage game. The average car hauler's getting 4.5. What are you doing?
5.7.
That is
around there.
Joel, you know the math on that. That's a big increase.
Yeah, that's a significant increase, and it's a more powerful increase when you're at the lower end of the spectrum. We've talked about this in terms of money. When you're operating equipment that's less than aerodynamic, that's in a very challenging environment like an auto hauler is, that bump from 4 to 7, it doesn't sound real impressive when I talk about 10.78, but in reality,
it's bigger.
It's a bigger financial gain for you than for me going from 10 to 10.78. I mean, it just is. And that's where a lot of people miss that. They don't understand where they sit in a particular group. And so they look at things that I do a lot of times, and then they get discouraged. And there's no way you should be discouraged when you're 1.5 miles a gallon better than everybody else in your particular peer group.
Yeah.
Well, I also don't drive as fast as most of them do. A lot of them drive 70 and 75, and here I am going along at 60 to 65. I mean, I just really don't like driving over 65 because the dynamic pressure it puts on this type of vehicle with the amount of weight there is and the structure and all of that. The fact that cars are back there while they're on there, where you put more dynamic pressure on the vehicle back there, puts more stress on all the structure of the vehicle. So I just really don't like driving the vehicle. I mean, I'll occasionally will go up to 68 miles an hour, but it's very rarely. But I know people that they just flat out go 70, 75 all the damn time.
In every operation, there is a cost associated with speed. There just is, and very few people understand that. They think I can go down the road at 55 or 75. It's just going to cost me exactly the same, and it absolutely doesn't. Even taking the fuel part out of it, me and my brother have really tried to put a number to this, and we think the difference between 72 mile an hour and 58 mile an hour is about 40% maintenance cost.
That's
over
huge.
the course of a year.
That is
Wow.
huge.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It is huge.
Hey, this is
and people just don't get it.
you know what my motto is for 2025? And it applies to speed on the vehicles like we're talking about, but it applies to my entire day. I walk around saying this to myself because I have to remind myself. My new motto for 2025 is slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
That is 100% true.
Yeah.
Kevin, you said that
true.
yesterday. I'd like to address that. One of the things about slowing down or being steady like that, which is when you said that, I'm like, I kind of do that, is that people don't look at the big picture of a whole year. It's like they get a bad load or they get a bad week and they feel like they've lost the year. They don't look at like the big picture, they don't look long out at the long run. If you have a bad week, if you have a bad day, it's just, you have to chalk that up to that's what it is. And you just, you threw an interception and a touchdown for an interception, but you just keep going and try to be focused on what you do well and do it in the long run, because, the average, and I mean, I've talked about this. I haven't run my average for the end of the year yet of what I've averaged on all miles, but as of the end of June, I was at 349 on all miles. And
wow, nice.
When I look at having a bad week, I'm like, and I look back over the years before, it's come down the average, but it hasn't come down by that much. August was a completely horrible month, but I did the best I could. And I don't think it affected my overall average by that much, but people I know people right now that are taking everything they can get because they're in a bind. Me, I took 2 weeks off here because I'm tired. And I know that once I get going, I'll build my average back up. But in the way that I work, I don't even look at
smarter, not harder.
I get paid anymore. Pardon?
You're working smarter, not harder.
I try to, and it's like I was telling Kevin at NASDAQ, I said I've got to learn to take more time away from all of this. And, not focus on things so hard because it's putting an amount of stress on me. But it's like I feel guilty when I don't work because the truck's still sitting there, insurance is still being paid, and there's cost that just accrue just from sitting there. And I was like, man, I'm not making the revenue. And that's a lot of that is why sometimes I probably work more, like Elon Musk and, sleep in the truck more than I do anywhere else, because it's like, I'm at work and it's like, if I don't do it, nobody else is going to. There's no AI in hauling cars right now.
The other thing that is important about what you just said is you need to come into this business every day, every week, every month with realistic expectations. If you get in the business you guys are in and don't think you're going to have bad weeks, you're just not being real.
Yeah.
And you've got to set aside your resources. You compare two trucking companies, one that pushes the hours of service, pushes their drivers, leaves their drivers out there 3-4 weeks before they get them home. And you compare them with another company that gets their drivers home and gets them rested every weekend and gets the truck looked at every weekend. And you say, well, this guy's running a hell of a lot less paid miles, but he makes more money at the end of the day. And look, he has no driver turnover.
Yeah.
So what kind of fixed cost is there in a trucking company to replace a driver? I mean, how much does that cost?
So I remember.
And so having realistic expectations in setting your goals and driving yourself, you're going to work harder than anybody else in your company if you own a trucking company. But pacing yourself is important. And it's not always running. Like you said, you took a couple of weeks off. right between 2 days before Christmas and 4 days after the first of the year, nobody's running trucks.
So, we attribute
the people
that
that ship
saying.
cars that I haul for have met all their goals, and they're not
Yeah.
shipping right now. So there's no sense in me being out there.
Exactly.
We attribute that saying "slow is smooth and smooth is fast." It comes from the Navy SEAL training program where they pound that into their head. But in reality, we all learned it in kindergarten. It was the tortoise and the hare.
Tortoise and the hare.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you a good example of it, Kevin. Have you ever done? I bet you haven't ever done this. It's something you ought to put on your bucket list. Is drive the Natchez Trace. Natchez Trace.
I have not.
Is the largest. I think it's the largest national park in the country. It runs for about 400 miles from just south of Nashville all the way to Natchez, Mississippi. And there are no billboards, no stoplights, nothing.
Yeah.
It's a 2-mile, 2-lane drive. The speed limit is like 55.
Okay.
And I can assure you that you can drive from Nashville to Tupelo, Mississippi faster on the Trace than you can getting there any other way.
Yeah, I like that.
That's a pretty good analogy about, speed isn't everything. But now I'll tell you what, if you watch that football over the weekend, speed was everything in those ball games. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Well, here's another example, Kevin. When I done the yearly roundup on Purple Haze 1, so everybody busts my chops about the speed that I run, and when we can run 57 mile an hour, we run 57.
Exactly.
Now, if I have to go faster, we'll go faster, but we dispatch our truck correctly, so we try never to have to run faster.
Right.
It's a wide open truck. It's not governed. It can run 100 mile an hour if we wanted to. So I take a lot of heat because that's what we prefer to cruise at. So now we did have Connor in the truck for a few months with Travis doing some training to get him ready to get out on his own.
Yeah.
And we had the truck show. Travis had 3 weeks vacation in July that he took that we just parked the truck. Still ran 128,000 miles.
That's the whole point. And that's what Mark was talking about earlier. When you look at the whole year, you don't look at, oh my God, I got to run hard to get this load in today. Well, if you book the load that you have to run that hard, it damn well better pay for you to run that hard. And usually it doesn't.
So, no, it almost never does.
Right.
When you start to figure in your increased maintenance cost and your increased fuel cost, you can't. It's like you can't dig yourself out of a hole, and that's essentially what you're doing by thinking you're running fast. You're just digging that hole deeper. Put the shovel down. That's the first thing you got to do. Put the damn shovel down. And that high speed is generally just digging you a hole.
Well, let's think about this. Other than Matt, he's probably listening because he sent me a text earlier. Who wants to run more than 128,000 miles a year? I don't.
No, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I honestly, I didn't realize that he had run that many miles. I don't think Trav realized that they had really run that many miles.
Doesn't feel like
at the end of the year, it's like, oh shit, we've done 128,000 miles. So, so just relating a cruise speed to what you're able to accomplish in terms of miles run over the course of a year is kind of ridiculous. And I get all these high speed guys that bust my chops constantly. And when you ask them, how many miles did you run? Oh, 108,000.
Yeah.
100,000. And that's about what everybody runs. And it's very easily done. Even at 55 mile an hour, you can easily run 100,000 miles. It is not a problem at all. Still take time off, still have home time. And the great thing about it is because you're more profitable, if you want to you can take time off on your terms instead of just, bumping from 34 to 34.
Well, a ways back when fuel really went through the roof, it was about 10 years ago when it happened back then. It was over $4 a gallon for a long time. On the show and on our website, we had a group called the 54 mile an hour club. They didn't want to go 55. They said they were going to make it 54, and they did. And they stuck to it. And crazy fuel economy out of trucks that even had horrible specs.
Sure.
Mark, what else you got?
Absolutely.
That's about it, really. I'll end this with, telling David, it's like, I sound like a race car driver a lot of times when I call in here because I use Fleet Air Filters, I use Pittsburgh Power, I use the catalyst, I use the OPS system on the truck, I do the oil sampling. When if I have a problem, and I think I might have a problem in the engine or just as an insurance policy, I'll take an oil sample because they're not much. They're $50 at most. I mean, there's actually one of the Horizon has a lab here in Houston, and I can get it across town in one day, and it's usually the sample's back pretty quick. So, they are fast to turn around, depending on where you are in the country. They just happen to have one here in the Houston area. But I'll say it. I'll say this: building relationships, working the process, and just it all works. And one of the things I've learned and over the course of this is to really brought out the gratitude in me for people like Kevin and Bruce and you and you, David, Joel, David Counts, everybody. It's like being able to, I always set out. I was telling my daughter this the other day because there was this thing over in Texas here where a girl killed her competitor's goat in Future Farmers of America, and we were trying to determine why she did it. And I was in 4-H. In my very first year in the 4th grade, I had the grand champion steer in Rapides Parish, and it was like I won it all. And the next year I didn't win it all, and all the old women sitting around there were like, well, you shouldn't win the first year out because then you expect to win. Well, I always expect to win. I expected to win back then. I expect to win now. I don't go into any of this for failure. Failure is something that I learned from, and I don't know if I'm the top of my game or whatever, or this game or whatever. Maybe I am, and maybe my numbers speak for themselves. But it's like the one thing I always remember is you're only as good as your last load. You always have to be at the top of your game if you expect to finish and expect to win. And you also have to want it. I came into this coming out of corporate America. I drove years ago for hauling cryogenics and then raised kids. But I got into this because, number one, I hated working corporate jobs. I hated having to answer emails that the answer I gave was not good enough. And I like working for myself. And I was reminded by my bookkeeper that when I tell people I'm self-employed, my bookkeeper said, you're a company driver. You own your own company and you work for yourself, but you are an employee. You are not self-employed, because I have an S Corp. And so I have to think, I was going to tweet that to Kevin, that I was like, hey, I just come to the realization I'm really not self-employed. I'm actually a company for a corporation that I just happen to own.
There you go.
So
there you go.
Right. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. The end result is the process works. There are good people out here, and there are people that probably shouldn't be in the industry that are owner operators or that own trucks that expect it to be easy. I happen to think it's easy, but
it is once you figure out how to play the game right.
That's exactly right. It's like once you learn how to play the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once you learn how to play the game. So I actually appreciate everybody, all of you all. I don't know if I have much to add, but it's like I'm just out here doing my part, and it's a whole lot better than building.
I think I can speak for the other two gentlemen on the line here in saying that it's easy. What we do is easy compared with what you do. And I can't even fathom how you do what you do every day. But I do have an undying appreciation for drivers and small companies because you do things for us that are essential. And, you know, I can't get my stuff without you. So it's easy from our end. NASTIC has been 35 years of the best years of my life. And I'm just grateful to have been accepted into this industry as an outsider. And I'm so thankful that we've been able to make a difference with owner operators and small trucking companies. We're going to continue to have that attitude. And despite all the headwinds and despite all the flap, and I'll keep telling people, don't try to outrun the bear, just outrun your peer group.
David, I want to tell you one thing. You run a first-class event. It's first class. It's you and the auto hauling group. Those are first-class events. It's like, and I tell people this, I'm like, it's a first-class conference. And, you know, I'll keep coming. I like to be there. I like to be around the people, meet new people. And you should be commended for running a first-class operation. And your employees, I mean, it's like I told Bruce Allison about Pittsburgh Power. I'm like, you don't have much turnover. Everybody here is absolutely wonderful. Your employees that you have are absolutely wonderful people.
Yeah.
And, you know, you must be doing something right with them and to have them stay there and stay loyal to you. So that speaks volumes for you as a company yourself.
Well, they make me look smarter than I really am every day. And I am blessed with I think the best 50 families in the country that work here. And, you know, one of the things that makes them so good at their job is the fact that we aren't in the trucking business. We don't have to deal with drivers. We don't broker any freight, and we don't own any trucks. So we can focus all of our energies and all of our resources every day to helping small companies and owner operators put another penny or a mile or $1 a load back on their bottom line. And it's reflected. And I thank you for the
Let me say this,
kind words. But we call it the best 3 days in trucking for a reason. I think it's the best 3 days in trucking.
Let me add something to that. We are all in the customer service business. You are, I am. I just happen to drive a truck, a car hauler. I happen to deliver new cars. But we are all in the customer service business. That's the business, customer service. And if you don't service your customer, you won't have any business. And
there you go.
My customers reach out to me. They reached out to me when they got dumped a bunch of loads right before Christmas, but I was on a load. There was no way I could get to do it. But they came to me first and offered it to me. I just I can't get there. I got one of your loads right now. I'm behind today because there was a delay in getting this load, and I'm on the west of Houston going to San Antonio. But they reached out to me because I make it a point to let them know that they are my customer and I'm there for them. And if I do anything wrong or if I can do anything better, to please let me know. And I also take them things at Christmas and different times of the year to let them know how much I appreciate them, because without them, I wouldn't be here buying something from you. So, you know, that's the way I look at it.
There you go. All right. I got to move along, Mark. We'll talk to you again soon. Got a couple calls that have been holding for a while here. Let's go to Florida. Nick, welcome.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Hey, Nick.
What's on your
mind?
How
you doing,
today?
Dave?
Good, man. Better not deserve.
Hey, I just want to thank you for what you do for us out here. I started in business about 5 years ago. I went through your survival training program. I got your field guard. I don't know how these people make it without the knowledge that you gave me. I really don't. The fuel discounts, the everything that you did, and it's just amazing.
Well, I thank you for the kind words, and thank you for coming through, spending a couple of days with us here in Hendersonville. That,
Yeah.
I've done some pretty cool things in my life, but that's the coolest thing I do. I get more enjoyment out of being in front of a handful of, anywhere from 20 to 50 new entrants or guys that are just starting out, not starting in trucking, but maybe starting as their own company. And that's, I'm not kidding you. I know you know this, having been through it. I get more fun. I have more fun on that long Saturday than anybody else in the room.
I've seen that.
I mean, I love it.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. Hey, one thing I would love it if you would add it to your thing, because you're proud of being the best salesman in the country, right?
Second best.
Oh, second best.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
How about having a class to help drivers out, dealing with brokers and stuff, because that was the biggest struggle for me the first year, was dealing with brokers.
That's a great idea, and I think Kevin and I could talk about that.
Yeah.
He probably is the second best broker dealer in the country. But I would love to do something like that. It really, it's more of an attitude than anything else, to my way of thinking, and it has to do with having a strong opinion of yourself, having a fairly strong ego, healthy ego, not cocky but healthy, and being unashamed to tell everybody what you're doing, to become a salesman. I think that's one thing that's not natural for small trucking company owners or drivers. That doesn't come natural to them to sell themselves, but nobody else is going to do it for you like you can do it for you. If I owned a small trucking company, I would have a book. I think I probably told you this in the NEST class, and everything about my company would be in that book. I'd have a show and tell book, and it might have pictures and fold outs and charts and graphs about how I clean my trucks, how I buy my trucks, how much fuel mileage I get, what my on-time delivery is, what my safety numbers are, how I vet my drivers, and on and on. And I would take that book everywhere I went. I would go to small shippers and brokers, and I would go to the FMCSA, and I would go to anybody out there that wants to listen and say, this is my company. My name's on the line here. My home mortgage is on the line here, and this is what we do. I want to haul some of your freight.
There you go. And
give me your worst nightmare of a load, and let me take care of it.
This is the beauty of the
the thing that. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, this is the beauty of the new format with the CMC, and now that NASTIC is a partner with us on this, I've got lots of flexibility. Like in our current year, we're still doing, the CMC that started at Matt's last year. We just talked today about bringing Joel and Dwayne in. That wasn't in the plan, but I have that flexibility now. So David and I could put together a sales broker relationship customer service piece and just drop it into the CMC.
Absolutely.
Sign me up.
All right, we'll do.
Even though I worked my ass off to get a dedicated run, I do the same thing every week. I have two brokers I deal with strictly.
Excellent.
So I don't even look on the load board anymore. So
that's awesome.
That is a great place to be, and that's one of the keys, really, for small trucking companies to succeed, is to get something regular.
Yeah.
So you don't have to reinvent your revenue stream. You can count on something that's for sure every week. And the guys that succeed are often they might spend 2 or 3 years finding their little niche. Like Mark is, his niche is auto hauling, and he's not trying to be everything to all people. He knows how to do that, and he does it very well. And he's outrunning his peer group. So.
That's right. All right, Nick, what else you got?
The oh gosh, I'm having a brain fart, man. I'm getting old, I guess.
I'll show you old.
the biggest thing that Kevin emphasizes this a lot is controlling your costs. I have learned to control my costs so well that I can, everything that I have is owned for, is bought and paid for. My house,
excellent,
my truck, my trailer, all my cars.
Congratulations.
I have zero debt. So when things turn sour, you know, with the freight and stuff, I don't fret. I can pay all my bills, keep my truck running, everything on 92 cents a mile.
Ah, that is
do you realize what you just said and how that it will extend your life by 5, 10, 15 years? Because it's going to decrease your tension level for the rest of your life.
Oh, yeah.
Being debt-free is the most exciting thing anybody can do, particularly if you've got a family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So my wife and I live on $1 a mile. That's paying for our vacations every year and everything else over $1 a mile goes into our retirement fund. So
fantastic.
So we're actually looking to cut back. This is going to be our last full-time year, and we're actually looking at a condo in Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
And we're going to start taking the winters off in Hawaii. So
wait a second, Nick. Now, wait a second. You can't be quitting on me.
No, I ain't quitting.
You get moving to Hawaii, you're quitting on me. You're not going to be running a truck out there.
No, well, it'll be parked while out there, but I'm gonna become a fair weather trucker.
There you go. There you go. All right, Nick. Good talking to you. Thanks for the call. Yeah. Let's get to Wisconsin. Joe, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Kevin, it's your local libertarian trucker here. Having a small issue with my 21 Cascadia. I'm just wondering, is it possible, one of three things, to clean off that sensor? Because I was getting the protection fault low coolant thing saying it was going to shut my engine down in 60 seconds. And after 6 times stopping and verifying that everything is just fine, I learned that if I just stomp on the gas, it'll clear it off without, making me pull over.
So it'll clear the code?
Yeah, just by stomping on the gas. I'm guessing it's either dirty or maybe I should just get some dielectric grease or something and put it on the contacts for the plug. Maybe it's just a little loose or something. I don't know.
If I were you,
I just figured I'd get your opinion in case you ever heard anything.
If I were, not specifically, and there's so many sensors on trucks these days, and every engine uses different sensors. Right. But I dealt with a lot of sensor issues when I worked on helicopters in the Army. And when a sensor goes bad and you're up in the air, it's a bad thing and you've got to land. And even if it's a sensor, you've got to fix it before you can fly again. And I just learned to replace sensors. Don't try fixing them. Don't try cleaning them.
Yeah, they're cheap.
Exactly. Just put a new one in.
And then next, I waited until after the first of the year. I knew I was having some bad wear. I've had this truck for 40,000 miles now. But I've had so many deductions last year that I'm actually going to get a refund when I do my taxes. I already figured that much out, and I don't think I've ever had that since I started driving my own truck. But yeah, that's how bad it was. It was like 75% expenses last year. It was pretty bad.
Yeah, it's a rough year.
So I was coming back up from Phoenix, and when I get up into Iowa, getting back into Wisconsin, I always take 330, bypass 2 way stations that way, and nice, easy 55-mile-an-hour roads for a long period of time. Yeah. And I'm like, I wonder if there's an MD alignment place up there. So I click on their website while I'm parked. I'm like, oh, there's one here. I'll go there, and I show up at the one in Altoona, and they're like. Oh, I said, this one's pretty bad, because I went to one that wasn't so great at doing it. And it's like, oh, no, don't worry. If we can't figure it out, we just make a phone call and Mike and Kevin show up. I'm like, what? They're like 5 minutes away from us.
Exactly.
They pulled my truck in and out 11 times before they got it right. The back, the back drive tires on the passenger side were out by 3 inches instead of the half inch that it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And the steer tire was in by 2.5 inches.
You got to be kidding me.
The hop no, it was bad.
That is
because
bad.
Brand new tires when I got the truck, and I thought I was gonna have to replace the steer tire. He's like, oh no, don't worry about it. He's like, I mean, you're gonna have to replace both of them anyway, and you probably got 60,000-70,000 miles left on this because now they're all gonna wear at the same rate. But yeah, the hop that I had, even with my Centromatics, is gone. So,
hey, David,
I mean, it didn't take long.
Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with, or do you have any relationship with MD Alignment, Mike Beckett?
No.
I got to
Not that I'm
introduce you to
aware
them
of.
too. I met Mike Volvo. God, I can't even remember when this was, in the 90s sometime. When Volvo, must have been late 90s, Volvo brought out their first auto shift. And they put together a tour, and they went around and hit all the Petro truck stops, not all of them, but they hit the big ones around the country. And they built like 4 trucks so you could drive them. They would pull in and let people drive these auto shifts out of the parking lot. And they set one up as a classroom, and they had planned this whole thing out. They had built all the trailers, and they contacted me and they said, hey, we want you to do this tour with us. And they expected me to ride along with the trucks around the country. And this was going to take like all summer. And I said, maybe you guys should have asked me first. I said, I can't commit to being gone all this time. And they're like, but well, we really thought you would. And I said, here's the best I can do. I said, send me the specific schedule and I'll tell you which events I can fly in and out of if you want to pay for plane tickets. But I can't. So anyway, they said that'll work. And I picked like 6 of them that I could do. And I get to the first one and I met Mike Beckett because they had hired him to do this as well. And to me back then, even though I knew a lot of mechanical stuff, I've always worked on things. I thought that aligning things was like voodoo or black magic. I had no idea what you did to align a vehicle, and certainly not a big truck. Mike taught me how to do it in the parking lot in about an hour with string, a tape measure, and some tape. And the alignment is drop dead perfect. You won't get as good of an alignment on any machine. You just don't. And Mike's been doing this for years. He worked with the maintenance council for a lot of years. He's now turned the business over to his son, Kevin, and they do my Thursday show. I do an hour, and then they come on and do an hour, and they answer all these questions about tire wear and alignment. And they have shops all over the country that he's got a small laser machine that he designed. You can carry it around in a bag, and you can do a truck alignment in a parking lot anywhere. And he sells the equipment and the training now. They used to do the work themselves, and now they have shops all over the country. But that would be another great partnership for you guys.
I bet he knows.
I bet real hard to one side to now it just goes like I can let go of the steering wheel and I will not move at all.
Yep.
I bet he knows Derry Stewart.
Oh, I'm sure he does. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Derry. I'm sure he worked with Derry. I'd love to do that. Matter of fact, there's another possibility for the CDC.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had one quick little question left over. I have an opportunity in 18 months to take over for a buddy of mine that's retired. Well, a buddy of my dad's, but he's getting ready to retire, and they said that I have to have my authority for a year in order to do it. And I'm leased on currently. Is there anything stopping me from just getting my authority? Is it like there's some special thing I got to do, and where I just don't use it until?
Well, first off, you don't want to get it till you're ready to use it. I mean, you don't want to wait till the last day, but about 30 days or 60 days out, we could start planning it. David, doesn't he sound like a perfect candidate for the ROTC program?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we do that. Call us and let us get your authority for you.
I'm a NASDAQ member. I just
Angel Clark takes care of our new Authority Plus program. And what we'll do when you get your authority, we'll get you around the second base with, you know, in the first 3 or 4 conversations. We do about 7 or 8 things real well. We'll put you through our class. You've obviously already done that, I think, haven't you? Or have you?
No, I haven't. I mean, I signed up for it. I read through some of the stuff that came in the pamphlet. I mean, I never even signed up for the fuel card because I'm also in the process over the last 2 years trying to find a property to buy that, you know, that's got a lot more land and away from too many people, and I don't want to ding my credit yet.
Well, what we'll do when you get ready to pull the trigger, call us, and we'll set you up on our drug and alcohol testing program. We'll write your insurance. We'll set up your driver qualification file for you if you're going to hire drivers. We'll have a real BOC3 we'll set you up with. We do about 6 or 7 things just out of the gate that'll make life a hell of a lot easier than it normally is. So just be sure when you just, like Kevin says, you don't want to get it and let it sit. You want to get it and use it. But once you get
can I still have it active and still be, because I want to still stay connected with who I'm with now, because it's going to be 18. I have to have an active authority for a year to take over his contract that he has. But until then, I kind of want to just, I'm getting really good rate, you know, really good pay from where I'm at right now, leased on to somebody else. I was just trying to figure out.
You can absolutely do that.
David, I want to clarify
That's
something
what I was
here,
worried about.
And I'm not sure of this, so I'm asking you. If it's active, if they're not looking at something that's been set aside, if it's active, does he have to have insurance?
That's a really good question. I was thinking the same thing as I just told him that. In order to get your authority, you have to show proof of insurance. Now, that's a question that I could ask. I know that you can have authority and make it inactive for a period.
Right.
But I would ask
you right now.
My
insurance all in is like $220 a month. I mean, they give me a big discount in insurance.
You're looking at 15.
You don't want to mess with that,
right? Yeah, that's because you're leased, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That
anyhow
may be the biggest hurdle.
That's a question for Michael Jordan and our insurance people, Kevin.
Yes.
I'll have to give a call in.
I just know that when you decide to pull the trigger, let us get involved from day one, and we'll make life a lot easier for you. The other thing that we can do, and we tried to do this, but they squelched it. At the very beginning, Kevin, when we started getting authority for people, we would sign them up with our 800 number so we'd get all the junk calls. Because when you get your authority, you'll get a call from everybody in the country that's trying to sell you something. But
a voice number or something.
Yeah.
Anyhow, just call us when you get ready to pull the trigger. We'll take care of you. And if it's not the best thing for you to go through us, we'll tell you that.
All right. Well, I guess that's the last thing I'll leave everybody with is I love being in business for myself, and my boss is an asshole, but my therapist says I should be nicer to myself.
There you go.
I think that's a good attitude.
All right.
Because everybody should have to work for an asshole like me.
All right, Joe, have a great weekend. Guys, I think we're going to wrap this up here at the bottom of the hour. Anybody have any final words?
It's about damn time. I tell you what, have you been paying me time and a half for these last 2.5 hours?
The check's in the mail.
I've enjoyed it. We need to do it more often.
Well, I want to thank you too, because this was a great way to start this first week of the year. I loved it.
Oh, absolutely. We still hadn't talked about what we were going to talk about.
I know. We're only going on 3.5 hours. Joel, are you still awake?
Let's get together next week one day and talk about just flesh out what you want, how you see me. I know I'm gonna have to come to Louisville a day earlier.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think your deal is on Tuesday.
No,
or
we
Wednesday.
start Wednesday, so we do Wednesday all day and Thursday morning till noon.
Yeah, I got you. Well, let's have a conference so I can I make a little preparation into what you expect from me and how I'm going to fit in there.
That sounds good. Let's get that done. All right, Joel. I think we might have lost Joel. He's on the board, but he probably doing something else, and he has his phone on mute. So
he probably went to change his oil.
He might have. When he comes back, we're going to be gone. So
well, listen, I'm out of. I've talked right on or listened right on through my lunch hour.
Joel, hey, I'm bringing Joel. Are
I'm
you there?
here.
What,
hey, Joel.
How are you still
I'm
on the
here.
board?
Yeah.
How are you still on the board?
I don't know what happened.
That's weird. There must be a glitch on my end, something technical. So we were just saying, by the time you come back, we're going to be gone.
Yeah, I heard it. I heard it all. I just
okay.
You couldn't hear me.
Weird. All right. So, what are your final words of wisdom before the weekend?
Final words of wisdom before the weekend. Enjoy the weekend. How's that?
There you go.
That's
that
right.
Works.
That's a good one. One thing I like about the way we design NASTIC is we don't carry any work home with us.
Good.
When we leave here at 4:30 or 5 o'clock on Friday, we don't hook up again until 8 o'clock Monday morning.
Good.
There you go.
That leaves a couple of days for everybody to spend on themselves and their families. So that's one reason why I got people that work for me. They don't have to carry on.
That's right.
They don't have to commute anywhere, and they don't have to carry work home with them. So I think that's an important thing to think about when you're talking about small trucking companies. Is getting your drivers home every weekend.
Yep.
Is maybe the most important thing about keeping drivers.
It is.
Maybe it's one or two, particularly if they've got a family. You know, if they don't have a family, it's not quite that important. But even if you don't have a family, you still need to recharge, and getting away from the truck is important.
Well,
for sure.
I'll say it's number 2, but number 1 is so obvious we shouldn't have to talk about it. Treat them like human beings.
Oh, absolutely. No kidding. Treat them like the gold they are.
Oh,
I mean,
well,
really.
There you go. Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's a great way to head into the weekend. And again, I appreciate you guys. What a great way to start this year.
Let's do it again soon.
Good show.
All right.
All right.
Take care, everybody. Be safe. Be profitable.
Take care. Oh, good talking to you. See you, Kevin.
All right.
Bye.
Be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey. We'll see you next week.